Welcome to another episode of Classic Beauty with Besame Cosmetics. I'm Gabriela Hernandez, and today we are talking about etiquette with Lisa Gache from Beverly Hills Manners. She's an etiquette coach and lifestyle expert who provides practical modern-day solutions to help her clients use the power of social intelligence to enhance their personal lives and professional. She is a go-to source for the entertainment community on everything from dining with decorum to managing your digital footprint. She helps clients with tips, tools, and guidance for any situation, and she has a wonderful book, Beverly Hills Manners, Golden Rules from the World's Most Glamorous Zip Code, available now on Amazon. So let's talk class, grace, and sophistication with Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so glad to talk to you after all this time.
Yes, Gabriella, I was so happy when you contacted me. It's been forever, and I just love all of the beautiful makeup you've created with Besame. So I'm happy to be here today.
Oh, well, thank you. Let's give people some background on what you do and when you started this business and how long have you been doing this?
Yes, so I am the owner of Beverly Hills Manners, and I have been in this business for about just over 20 years. And over the past 20 years, I've probably worked with, thousands of clients in Los Angeles. My husband likes to refer to me as the Emily Post of the West Coast, which I will take. I thought that was a fun little tagline for me. And over the years, I've explored so many ways to kind of wave the white flag of manners are a thing we should care about. And we should, because there's something that touch every single facet of our lives. And every year that I've been doing this, I keep saying the zeitgeist is now, we need to pay attention more than ever. And it's amazing how every year I've said that, if I look back, I now evolving to where we are today, I feel like those words have never been truer said than ever. And so I'm always excited to be sharing this particular piece of education because it is unique in that it like I said, it touches every single facet of our lives. It's the thing that holds us together or can fracture a relationship of years. And we need these tools to learn how to get along with one another and have fulfilling, thriving, successful lives,
Yes.
basically.
Oh, yes.
So
Have you
very
have you
long-winded answer.
Yes. Have you noticed that in these times with the social changes that are going around that we've gotten worse as a society, like where we lost our manners from the past were people more gracious in the past?
Well, if you look back and at the days, let's say, when we had to be more formally dressed, right? So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I believe that attire, what we choose to wear on our bodies,
mm-hmm.
helps us set the tone for our behavior. So back in the day when women were wearing beautiful dresses and gowns, and they were actually more restrictive, I think that helped us to learn how to speak in a way that was more formal and relate in a way that was more formal. And now everything, especially in Los Angeles, has become so casual, and that really can hinder the way, our daily interactions. So if you look at that coupled with all of the technological advances that we have, which are wonderful, but have also hindered our ability to communicate, especially interpersonally. So when you take those two things and you marry them together, it creates a world where people are very, they're just not dealing with each other in the most quality way. And I think that has definitely changed, but I feel like the pendulum is starting to switch back a little bit. And people are saying, you know what? We miss this and we want a return to a more civil way of being.
Right. So what is etiquette? Can you define what etiquette actually is?
Yes, and a lot of people don't understand there's a difference between the word etiquette and manners. So
Mm-hmm.
manners are really the spontaneous gestures we make when we are thinking about another person. So for example, let's say you're walking down the street and you see somebody in front of you that drops, maybe they had their hand in their pocket and all of a sudden a few dollars fell onto the floor of this, onto the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could just be a passerby and you could just walk and pretend you didn't see that. Maybe they'll notice themselves. Or you could be the type of person who has manners. You could bring it to their attention, say, tap on their shoulder. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I think you may have dropped a couple of dollars. Here they are." And it's spontaneous because we didn't know that was going to happen. But we're using our brain, we're using our eyes, we see what's going on, we say, hey, this might be helpful to that person. So we want to help them by using our manners. Etiquette is a French word that basically dates back to 18th century France. It has to do with the kind of ticket of entrance because you knew the rules. And what etiquette has evolved to become are basically nothing more than the guidelines that help us to know how we're supposed to behave in any type of situation.
I see. So the etiquette maybe is different. Manners is more really thinking of the other person or really thinking of others, not necessarily
Yes.
yourself, but other people and being aware of people around you. And if they need something, supply that.
Yes, it's really about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and
Mm-hmm.
imagining if you would want that person to do that thing for you. So if
Hmm.
you dropped a couple of dollars out of your pocket, you didn't notice, it was an accident, would you want the person behind you to notice and give it handed to you? Especially, let's imagine we dropped our phone or we left it in the back of a taxi or an
Mm-hmm.
Uber.
Yes.
Would we want a person behind, who got in afterwards to try and reach us somehow or return it to us? And that actually happened to me in New York City. And it was amazing because the person did pick up my phone and I forget how they got in touch with me, but they must have figured out a way or looked in my history, right? And called the next person in
Yes.
my phone log. And, and I wound up sending them, I can't remember, it was probably a very large bouquet of flowers as a thank you because, we can't rely on a lot of people to help us and do that sort of thing for us. But if we take a moment to imagine ourselves in their shoes, we might
Mm-hmm.
think twice, right?
Right. No, it's true. I mean, I found a few phones in my day, and I always try to at least get it back to the hotel concierge or get it back to somebody who can locate the person.
Absolutely.
Especially in parks and places like that where people leave the phones in the bathroom, and after that, 1,000 people are coming into those
Exactly.
bathrooms. Yeah.
And these
So
are our lifelines, so we don't want anybody, we just don't want, we could not imagine what we would do without it. So we want to help
right.
another person out.
Right.
Yes.
So another question I had is like, you do sessions, right? Like workshops for people
Yes.
to
Yes.
actually do this. So who comes to these workshops that you do? What kind of people actually invest in etiquette?
And that's a great question. I'm here in Los Angeles, and even after we had those terrible fires, not,
Mm-hmm.
basically a little over a month ago, or maybe not
Mm-hmm.
even, I was thinking to myself, my goodness, will I have a business anymore? Will anybody care about manners? Because a lot of people look at this education as a want, not a need. And
Right.
so we do, and we had a lot of clients over the years, like probably countless families who've lived in the Palisades or on the West Side or even in the Eaton, areas of the Eaton Fire, Pasadena, Altadena. And and I was thinking about all those clients and families that I've probably had over the years an opportunity to work with. And I was pleasantly surprised to realize that there were families, obviously not probably those that have been immediately touched and are dealing with finding a new home or a roof over their head, but the community is still coming back and noticing and saying, we need this. And I've had I have the strangest range of clients. I mean, I have people calling me that, can be same-sex marriage, and they have a young 2.5-year-old that they want to have, get them into some private lessons, right? Which is a very, very young age. Or I had and I'm giving you very wild examples. I had a gentleman who was I'm giving you a super wild example, and a dominatrix relationship, where the woman wanted him to be submissive, and and she wanted him to receive etiquette training, and part of that was also to go along with the transition he was making from a man to a woman. And then he was supposed to remarry another person. It was the craziest thing, but they were contacting me for tools. And so that was a very interesting query. But, more kind of normal everyday queries would be sports companies contacting me to work with their sports teams. So, for example, another recent inquiry was a varsity football team wanting these skills for the athlete students, because this is a skill set that they needed for eventually being recruited and also going on into college sports, etc. We offer a lot of group classes, and we've started doing that at the beautiful Hotel Bel Air because it's an aspirational setting, and we can take our students into the restaurant for a beautiful dining experience, as well as learning all of the other skills which most people want, which have to do with first impressions, or how to make proper introductions, or how to mix and mingle and make small talk. Learn business etiquette, learn social intelligence. These are all different modules that we offer, and we do that in a group setting or one-on-one.
Can you teach this even though people might be shy or really reserved?
Yes, and in fact, I have a lot of people coming to our company, whether they are seeking skills for themselves because they've identified themselves as someone who has been more of an introvert and wants to, maybe there's something that happened in their life where they have more of a need to get out of their shell, and or a desire. And certainly a lot of parents who may have children who are a little bit more on the shy side. And the thing about these skills is that they are learned. You do not have to be born with them. Yes, there are naturally charismatic people, but there is a way in which, if you hear the tools and you learn them and you start to practice them, just like any other practice you might have, we have to exercise the muscle, right? And it has to be repetitive so that you commit it to memory. Then you can grasp a tool like knowing how to engage someone in a conversation, or knowing how to do some due diligence to learn about what's happening in your world so that you can, participate in a conversation with anyone, anywhere. But you need to learn a framework, or grab onto a tool that is tangible, that you can use, and that's simple and relatable, that you can apply so that you can start testing the waters and become, someone who is more extroverted. And by the way, more practice makes you feel more comfortable at it, right?
I see.
So you might be shy at first or apprehensive, but with practice, building confidence, you say, oh, this is something I can actually do now. And then you're
happy. Yeah, well,
and feel
that
proud.
makes a lot of sense. Does it vary depending on the age of people, how you communicate? Because, when you're talking to millennials or you're talking to Gen Z, they don't really understand in the same way. It seems like we're speaking different languages sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. I do try and change my delivery, right? So even, like I said, working with a 2.5-year-old, I'm getting on the floor in crisscross applesauce and speaking more in a fairy princess voice versus speaking to a teenager, right? Versus talking to a professional in the business world. So there is absolutely a different language and a whole vernacular that I need to use when I communicate these tools, because one of the other things that I try to do is, if I'm reading my client correctly, I will try to inject humor into how I share it, because I think that always helps make the medicine go down.
Yes.
But yes, it's a constant kind of tweaking, and also finding language that will meet them where they are and what, so if I hear, for example, a piece of slang, which a lot of times the teenagers or the Gen Zers will use. I did a dinner instruction for a group of, it was for someone's very popular podcast and or YouTube channel rather, and they were in their, I think, 20s or early 30s, and I didn't even know who they were, but my girls knew who they were, and they said, "Mom, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just did this show," and they were using all kinds of words that I wasn't familiar with, so I'll learn them, and then I might try them out on another client who's of similar age. So it's a learning process for me as well.
Oh, well, that's great. So I know you work with a lot of celebrities in Hollywood. Is it hard to work with famous people? Are they harder to, because you have to tell these people what to do and how to do things, and do they take that kind of advice? Is it difficult to do that?
And that's a very interesting question. I mean, you'd think that they're used to taking direction, let's say, if they're not the director in a film or a television show, and they have the director there saying, do this, say that, this way and that way. I think it depends on the situation. If somebody is calling and arranging for them to meet with me, like their manager or somebody who's on their team, and it wasn't necessarily their decision, it may be met with a little bit more of a, how is this going to go? Do I need this? What is this saying about me? Versus when they call for themselves. But everybody's different, and some people have a bit more of a rough exterior, so I have to kind of get to know them and show them that you can trust me, and that everything we say is here, there's a cone of silence, this is learning, nothing is too silly, you can ask me anything. And so once I build that trust, I think the kind of hard shell comes off. So I haven't had any horror stories. And I've only actually, at the times that I've actually done things with celebrities, even for television or for, because I've done a few episodes with celebrities for TV, and those have all gone quite well. And what they really want to bring out is the humor in the whole thing. So that always helps to put everybody on a level playing field.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned in part of what you teach is something called social intelligence. So what is social intelligence skills?
So most people have heard of emotional intelligence. That is spoken about much more often. And when we talk about emotional intelligence, what we're speaking about is our ability to identify others' emotions, and also the ability to control our own emotions, right? And so similarly, we're swapping the word emotional for social. So what we're looking at are social cues, or call them social clues, to help us navigate a social situation.
I see.
And so we want to observe others and notice what is going on in this situation. How are the people around me responding, and how does that dictate how I should respond? So, for example, if you notice and you walk into a room and there is a heated conversation going on, two people in an argument, and you come into that room, if you have social intelligence, you are not going to add fuel to that fire. You are going to try and read the room, kind of assess what's going on, and see how you can maybe help, not hurt the situation. Someone who doesn't have social intelligence may come in and take someone's side, which might then further upset the other person. Or they might escalate with more yelling on top of the yelling that's already happening. So social intelligence gives us the tools to navigate social situations where it's a win-win.
I see. So if you if you went into the situation that you just mentioned and two people were arguing, what is the correct response to that?
Well, if you come in as the third party and you see that they're in a heated situation and you know one of them, you might, ask if there's any way in which you can, help. Is there anything that I can do? You two seem to be having a difference of opinion here. Please share with me, how can I help us so that we all walk away from this conversation feeling whole? Right?
I see.
Or if you have to pull somebody physically away, right? You might say, Samantha, come over here for a minute. Let's come over here and let's cool down for a moment. Let's get a cold drink. You walk them sort of out of the scene into the kitchen area. And then you've had a moment to kind of diffuse the situation, let everybody take some deep breaths. So that's reading a situation, coming in with using all of your senses to observe what's going on around you and determine the best way to kind of separate the two people or get them each to take a breath and understand that they may have a difference of opinion and they may never see the other person's side, but it's still okay. And we can find a way to still be civil with one another and not sever the relationship they currently have.
Yeah, I'm sure this is happening a lot in family situations at this point. So you must see this a lot in people that have disagreements, either political or viewpoint disagreements, and you have to go into a family situation. And so I'm sure that you get this quite a bit of how do I not, get involved in this kind of situation.
And what I remind my clients is it's not about you. So take yourself out of the equation and try and be there for the people that need your help. And sometimes we have to be the grown up in the room, right?
Yes.
And we have to rise above the fray, and we have to get them to imagine how each of the other people are feeling, and that the situation doesn't have to have one person is right and the other person is wrong. It can be both people have things that are true that they feel are very important to them, and that's okay. And we can still coexist.
I see.
It's just speaking in a manner that doesn't make anybody feel bad or wrong, or speak to them like they are, when we talk down to somebody and it puts them on the defense, we don't want to do that. So we just really have to manage it, meeting them where they are. But, look, it's a little bit of therapy, honestly. You have to become the therapist a little bit, but not until we can share with people in a way where we validate where they are, because everybody wants to be validated. They don't want to be made wrong. They want you to know that you hear them, right? They want us to hear them. And then once we hear them, then we can try and figure out, okay, what's the next step here? How can we then make them understand that that's okay, we hear them, and there still is this other piece that they may not agree with, but we have to still decide that we want to still be in conversation or in relationship with one another, coexist, and move on. And then at some point you have to change the subject. You have to move on, right? Because if we all walked around and held onto our grudges, we wouldn't be able to be left with no one left to be in relationship with.
Right. And that's kind of what, that's what seems to be happening a lot with younger people. They just cut people off. And then there's so much loneliness because people are just left alone. There are no people that you can get along with.
Exactly. And a lot of clients will come to me and they won't understand why they haven't found a romantic relationship yet, or why they don't have more friends. And I work with them on seeing that there may be, it's not them, it's you, because we all know that we have to start with ourselves. And once we change ourselves first, other things will then change around us, because we are the common denominator in all of those equations, right?
Right.
And so we have to start with ourselves by looking at ourselves and taking a hard look sometimes and saying, am I too critical? Am I too negative? Do I even smile anymore? Can I laugh at myself? These are all things that endear us to others. And when we endear ourselves to others, that makes us attractive. That's what people want to be around. That is honestly showing that you have good manners, that you are aware of your social intelligence, because no one wants you to walk into a room and bring your toxic self with you.
Right. Yes. So speaking of that, what do you think is the biggest social faux pas that you see a lot all over the place, in media, in everywhere?
Well, I think the ability to just be a person who brings the positivity and the light and smiles and tries to find the joy in the situation and look at that glass half full, because I think there are so many people that walk around, with these exposed nerves, just waiting for somebody to kind of brush up on one, and then they become explosive, right?
Yes.
Versus the other way, when you can find sort of the silver lining in a situation. And I'm not saying you have to diminish something terrible that's happened, which nobody wants. You want that empathy there, but at the same time, you don't have to go the umpteenth degree and add the drama to the situation. So I think sometimes people are missing levity and light. And I know that may sound a little woo-woo, but honestly, because so many people are negative and, have this face on that makes them look like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, right?
Yes.
And they always, when you ask them how they're doing, it's not that they're going to give you the good things. They're going to go right into the laundry list of all the things that are wrong. It's like, and that's okay, but don't open with that. And if you go to a party, a birthday party, something that's celebratory, try and bring a smile.
Right.
And bring your A game and try and have some wonderful, contributory things to share that are positive and uplifting and give us, so that we walk away feeling whole.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about grace. You said that, manners give you confidence in grace. So what does confidence and grace look like outwardly when you see a person and you say, well, that person I can see is confident and graceful? What are you noticing?
Yes, and that's a great question. I mean, the word grace is not even used enough. I love that you use the word grace, and I aspire to always be a vision of grace. And
you are a vision.
Well, you are, Gabriella, with your beautiful hair and your style. I mean, my true form is I'm a very petite Jewish girl from New York City who likes to be first in line, who is very quick, who doesn't have a lot of patience, who, wishes she were 4 inches taller, so that I could have those long, graceful lines, have a British accent. There's so many things that I equate with grace, right? A beautiful, teeny tiny waistline, all these things. So without that, what we can do is to try and carry ourselves in a way where we're standing tall, we're sitting tall, we're walking like, sliding, swans in the pond, and we are not heavy on our feet. We're sitting in a ladylike fashion with our knees closed together so that we're not sitting like, man spreading on the subway. We are dressed in an elegant manner, and we don't live in our sweatpants every day of our lives, that we actually get dressed when it's an occasion to get dressed. For example, I just was invited to a 60th birthday party last weekend, and my friend is Russian, and so the invitation said to dress, in all your fancy Russian, whatever it is, whatever that interpretation is, and I took that to mean fur and heavier makeup and lots of glitz and glamour. And
Dr. Zhivago,
so
right?
I turned that
on. Like Dr. Zhivago? Dr.
Exactly.
Chicago
And actually,
type of-
one of the ladies, yes, and one of the ladies wore one of those hats, and I had one of those, but I wore instead this big, long, faux fur. And
Okay.
that's what you do. So the elegance and the grace can come from just your attitude as well. Because if you have this beautiful exterior, but there's a Jewish expression, finissin apunum. It means your face is looking like a frown all the time, like you've just sucked some sour grapes. And so if I were looking this beautiful way, but then I come in and I look like I just sucked on some sour lemons or whatever, it doesn't match the message, right?
Right,
So
right.
grace can be humor. It can be
Okay.
self-deprecating humor, right? But it's carrying yourself and not making a nuisance of yourself, not calling attention to yourself when you shouldn't call attention to yourself, trying to be patient, trying to be allow for other people to have a difference of opinion and not shoving your opinion down their throat. All of these are examples of how we can be graceful.
Okay. So how do you can't really slide into a room if you're wearing like Ugg boots or Doc Martens or because my daughter wears these and a lot of girls wear these. So
Yes.
it's not really easy to be graceful with that kind of shoe.
That's very true.
So what do you what do you suggest?
Well, and I get it. Look, again, I'm petite, so I have to live in heels, which are not very comfortable, especially after COVID when we were all had too long, a year and a half or 2 years to not have to wear heels.
Right.
And so I've actually appreciated, I'm not sure if you've heard of the company by the gal who created Spanx.
Yes.
She now has a shoe company called Sneaks, which are basically high heel sneakers that are very comfortable for your feet. But so, when I teach, for example, and I tell my clients to come to the class dressed in appropriate behavior, I definitely don't want them in their casual sneakers or their Uggs or anything that isn't more of an elegant, shoe that isn't so weighty, right? Because we want to learn how to walk in. And I've taught many people how to walk in high heels, because when you walk in high heels, you need to have equal balance on, your pinky toe and your big toe, and you need your feet, your digits spread out. And even putting your foot into the shoe, there's a way so that it's comfortable for you, or even adding dance soles on the outside or a little rubber sole on the heel, any way to make them feel more comfortable. So with young women, I think there's a time and a place. So I think it's adorable to wear those certain Chelsea boots or kind of Doc Martens type boot if you're going to a club at night with your friends, right? But if you're going to a wedding or somewhere, you need to find comfortable shoes that also have an elegance to them. Right. And there are certain brands I recommend that have that. So it's just noticing when and where. What does the situation call for? What can I get away with? How can I still look elegant and beautiful even if I have these shoes on my feet? And it can be done. You just have to think a little bit more about it.
I see. So if you're going on an interview, let's say, and you want your look to be polished, what constitutes a polished look in your opinion?
Yes. And it really, I think I always say to err more on the side of formality. A lot of times because we were looking at, let's say, the Mark Zuckerberg type CEO or whatever he was for head of company for now Meta. If you, back in the day, tech companies with the whole sweatshirt jeans thing, it's still a thing. So if you're going into an interview for that, a tech company, I wouldn't say that you need to follow the rules that I'm sharing. But in all other jobs, I think that putting and paying attention to what you're wearing and finding clothing that fits your body, that does allow us to see your physique a little bit. I'm not saying wear tight-fitting clothing. I don't want women to wear a décolletage that will be something that's a distraction. Things should fit. Things should be clean. You shouldn't have buttons falling off or strings falling down or shoes untied. Shoes should be polished. Even if you're wearing glasses, they should have all the smudges taken out, because the bottom line with having an interview is that you only have this one chance. And whether you're online doing a virtual interview or in person and you have smudges, what's happening is that creates a distraction. And your interviewer is now looking at, can they see out of their glasses, or did they notice that button is falling off of their jacket? So definitely to check those things. And then I personally, as I'm wearing today, love a good blazer. I think a good blazer is a beautiful way to go because it gives a nice shape. And this is great for for anybody to really and you can wear this with a pair of pants. You can wear it with a skirt. You can wear it over a dress. So it just has a beautiful finished look that shows that you put a little effort into what you wear and that you care about putting the best version of yourself forth because you want this job. And I think that's what we're communicating with our attire, is how much we care about where we are and the pursuit of the position that we are there for.
What about your hair and jewelry and any other accessories that you have?
It's the same. I think we've heard from Coco Chanel, to just look in the mirror and take off one thing before you leave. Less is more. With you, you have your beautiful lipsticks and makeup. And so I'm sure you have lots of tips and tools about if you have a big, bright red lip, maybe less on the eyes, etc.
Exactly.
So
yes.
balancing, right? So balancing your makeup, making sure that it's not, again, a distraction. If you're wearing foundation, you want to make sure it's blended. I've seen too many young ladies with not blended, facial foundation. And the same thing with jewelry.
Especially if it doesn't match.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
They need an expert like yourself to help them.
Yes.
And same thing with jewelry. There's a lot of women who love to wear lots of jewelry and things are dangling and it's chunky. Just being aware that things aren't becoming a distraction and that you're not, that it's tasteful. So I think that's what I'm looking for. And sometimes simple is better than, but at the same time, none of this is to say you can't be you. So if you have a signature scent, or if you have a signature piece that you wear, like you like to wear a pin, some type of brooch, then go for that. If you like to wear a scarf, you can bring in that piece because it's part of who you are and you may stand out because of it.
Right. And so what about like people that have different colored hair and things like that, where the hair is giving up a different impression of the person?
Yes. And again, I would look at the company culture that you're interviewing for, because we have a lot of people with piercings, right? And they can be the piercings where they have the giant holes in their ears or in their nose or their tongue or their lip, or, and then you can have people with tattoos, and you want to also be mindful of what types of tattoos you're exposing, and obviously hair color. So if your persona is very creative, letting all those things hang out, then you may not be suited for certain companies. Certain companies may have rules. So for example, I work with a lot of my clients at the Hotel Bel Air, and it's funny, this reminds me of a story, because when I greet the valet people, which are typically men, and I noticed one of the men I hadn't seen in a while, and he had a lot of facial hair. He grew a beard and a mustache, and he said that he had taken some time off for the holidays, and he said that they had just made a new rule that men could have facial hair at the Hotel Bel Air. Okay. So I thought that was really interesting, because I also, years and years before I started working there on my own and bringing my clients there, I got married there, but even before that, I used to work as a hostess in their dining room. And there were certain rules about the color nail polish. They wanted us to wear pantyhose, and we had to have our hair up because when you deal with food. So there's you just have, I would do some due diligence with the company you're about to meet with and find out what the guidelines are, and then meet those guidelines. Because you can have maybe hair that's several colors, but if you put it up in a beautiful bun and you make sure everything looks neat and tidy, it's not a distraction, then that may be just fine. So it really depends also on how you work with what you have. So maybe you can wear long sleeves that cover your tattoos, right?
Right.
Or maybe take out your piercing for when you're at work. I'm not sure how that would go.
Yeah, right.
But
Do you think it was better though in the past when they had these rules to kind of keep a kind of a style of the place so that people, didn't have beards and, had their nails done a certain way or wore certain kind of makeup or hair? Do you think that was a positive thing that we somehow lost, or do you think it's still or not viable anymore?
right. Again, I think that's an excellent question because it really depends on your message, your company, your brand, your messaging. So if you are, look, for my business, for example, right?
Yes.
It's about etiquette. So
Right.
my main concern is going to be, well, there's a lot of main concerns in my business because etiquette, like I said, kind of takes over every single facet of your life. So you do need to have a certain type of presentation that you're putting forth, right?
Right.
And on top of that, you also have to have a certain demeanor. So I have to watch myself. If I'm in line at the grocery store, I need to wait patiently, and be dressed presentably, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
and I can't have employees wearing maybe black nail polish because it's not in line with, maybe for Halloween, yes, but then not all the time, right? And so, and it wouldn't be right to be in the restaurant industry having people working with their hair down because the hair falls into the food. So a lot of it is for practical reasons. And some of it is just because a company owner says, this is the way we feel will best represent us, and it has nothing to do with you personally, and no one should take it personally. Those can be their personal choices, but then they have to kind of be okay with whatever the guidelines are of that company because that's that company's right. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you own your company, you get to dictate the way, and if everybody wants to come on stilts and, in roller skates, then great, so be it, right?
Right.
That's what's great about owning your own company.
That's great. That's great advice. So now let's talk a little bit about dining because people have, I think, a lot of concern about dining in very formal situations that they're doing something wrong or they might do something wrong because you sit down and there's so much cutlery in front of you, so many glasses and so many things, and you don't know if you're actually doing it the right way. So what are some quick tips that you can give us on formal dining?
Okay, well, I'm so going to ruin my business because I'm going to give away the gold here.
Just a little taste. The rest they can call you or buy your book and get the rest of the tips. Actually,
and it does help to be with me in person. But one of the things, I'll give you 2 tips and tricks. So one of them is that will help anybody wherever they sit down at a table, is that when we read a table, when you have your cutlery on the table, you will notice that there is a certain placement for things. So do not move things on the table as if the waitstaff placed them in the wrong position.
Right.
So the fork, you will notice, is on the left, and the knife is on the right. And then I'll see people sit down and they will switch hands. And there is a reason those utensils are where they are. And that is because most people are right-handed.
I see.
And your right hand has to hold the knife because we are right-hand dominant. Another thing people don't know is that if you have multiple pieces of silverware on the table, you always work from the outside going in toward the plate.
I see.
So
Okay.
sometimes we'll have 2 forks and 2 knives. So you start with the outermost fork and knife, and then the next fork and knife going in toward the plate. So we can, by reading the silverware, the cutlery on the table, we can learn what is going to be presented in the meal. This is if you have a sit-down dinner that's already created. If you
Right.
order off the menu, they will bring utensils most of the time accordingly.
I see.
So everything on the table has a purpose, and there is balance on the table. So where your drinks are located and where your bread plate are located are opposite, because there's balance. Not everything is all piled up onto one side. And that you have a napkin, and that your napkin is used for a number of purposes. It can be used for wiping your mouth. It can be used for capturing a sneeze, or covering your mouth if you want to yawn, or
see.
if you need to cough. There's lots of uses for the napkin. I think a lot of people forget that, and they want to sneeze into their elbow, or they cough into their hands, and they don't need to do that because they have an actual cloth napkin on their lap in which to do so.
I see. So if you're looking at the table and you have, 3 sets of silverware, does that mean that you have 3 plates that are coming to you? So each silverware is for one course?
Correct. So it may not be a plate. It may be a bowl. Well, sorry, you might have a soup spoon there, which means that the soup will be served. But yes, you might have 2 forks and 2 knives, which means maybe there will be either another type of appetizer coming before your main course. So the number of utensils dictates the number of courses that you will be dining on. And that's, again, if it's a preset dinner. You might see that at a wedding, for example. Right?
I see.
And so it's actually, probably one of the most common things that people associate etiquette with, right?
Yes.
Because they think about dining skills. And one of the other things for people to realize is that there's so many other tips and tools associated with dining. Like there have been a number of stories in the paper written about wait staff coming to clear the plates while people are still dining, while others are eating. Right? Some people have finished their plate, others at the table are still eating. The wait staff comes over to try and clear the dirty plates. And that upsets people because they don't want to feel rushed, right? If somebody's finished, they're still working on theirs. And so there is a rule that most people don't know. And this is a dining etiquette rule, and that is we are supposed to keep the same pace as our table mates.
Right.
So if we look around and we need to slow down or we need to go faster, that will prevent the wait staff from coming over to our table before everybody's finished.
I see. So in these type of meals, I'm sure you've been to somewhere. It's kind of like almost like a small tiny plates, like a lot of courses of very small plates. Yeah,
Yes.
or small plates that get served to you, but they're courses, but they're all very small. Do you change the silverware for each one of these? Because there can be like 5 courses of small bites.
Are you talking about like a multi-course meal that you might have in Napa Valley, or are you talking about just small plates at a tapas restaurant?
No, as a sit-down meal that you have in a very fancy restaurant that has very small plates that come out, and the chef will give you something to taste, and they'll give you something else and something else, and
so in that regard, they should bring you utensils for each course.
Oh, they should.
So you will have a set. You will have a set number. You really should not have more than 3 forks and 3 knives preset at the table. Maybe a spoon, dessert silver. I'm not sure. But after that, every time they bring you a new course, they will bring you new utensils for that course. Because they may bring you something that requires a demi-tasse spoon. Or something, that requires a very special, a fish fork and a fish knife that may not be preset on the table. So those will absolutely be brought newly to you. for that specific course, because we can't have millions of dishes and millions of pieces of silverware all the way down the edge of the table.
I was
Right? We'd all
wondering
need
that.
our own banquet table.
Yes,
Exactly.
I was wondering that. Yes. I wanted to ask you for some examples and tips of like handling really tricky situations that you've encountered in the
Yes.
past, that will give people some ideas of what they should do in really kind of hairy situations if they're encountering any of this socially.
Right. And it's funny because you think of what kind of tricky situation could there be. And there's sometimes just normal situations that feel tricky at the time. So for
Right.
example, let's say you're going to and this is why a lot of people come to me, let's say from the professional world, is that they will be preparing for a dinner with the boss
I
and
see.
their spouse, and it'll be in their home or it'll be out at a restaurant, and they just don't know how to navigate certain foods,
I
right? So there are
see.
certain foods you can order off the menu that are easier to eat than others. So for example, you wouldn't want to order long noodle pasta, which we, affectionately call spaghetti,
Right.
so anything that requires twirling, a lot of people, and you don't want to cut long noodle pasta because that's a big no-no to anyone who's Italian. So
Yes.
you really have to know how to twirl, and you really should learn how to twirl with just your fork, not the spoon, which was started by Americans and really isn't very Italian. So
Right.
you should just, not, and a lot of people worry about the sauce getting on their outfit, right? Because it can
Right.
get very splashy. So
Yes.
that's a tricky situation. What do I order when going to dinner with my boss, etc.?
Right.
And so you want, and even ordering something, you may want to just look on the menu and find something that is a protein but not served on the bone, because a lot of times navigating chicken on the bone, you have to learn how to cut around the bone.
Right.
And I don't want to see you pitchforking your meat, right? So or ordering a tabbouleh salad and finding that you don't know how to dislodge a piece of parsley from your tooth. So those
Oh
are
my goodness.
legitimate tricky situations, right?
Wow. Yes, I can see that.
And another, there can be also a tricky situation that has to do with attending a party. So let's say you receive an invitation to a party and you really want to bring a +1 with you, right?
Yes.
And knowing, or to deal with somebody who you've invited and they want to bring their +1, and you need to tell them nicely that you don't have any room. And it could be, this has happened to people at their own wedding, and
Right,
somebody has wanted
right.
to invite somebody, and where every place setting is $300, right?
Right,
And so
right.
they really don't have the room, and you really have to look at this very carefully and imagine yourself in their shoes and kind of find out, can we squeeze that person in? What is my relationship with them? How do I make them feel whole? And I have someone who this actually happened to, and she wound up not letting that person bring their guest. And then, of course, at her wedding, somebody couldn't come last minute, so there was an extra space, and that could have been filled by that person. And we also don't want any empty chairs, right, at a wedding.
Right.
So sometimes don't be so quick to act and say no. There
Okay.
may be a reason. And it's always, my feeling is there's always room for someone at my table.
Oh,
And
well, there
maybe
you
that
go.
act of graciousness will be good karma, and something good will happen because of it.
Oh, well, no, that's great. That's great advice. So, tell us a little bit about how people can contact you and take your classes, and also about your book. What can we learn in your book?
First of all, I just happen to have a copy here,
All right, all right.
which goes with my background. So the book was written years ago, but I swear it's still as relevant as ever. The tips and tools in here are not only relevant, but they're humorous, and you will get a good laugh. There's a lot of poking fun about the way things work here in Hollywood. And there's some, I think I have a reference to all the hotels in Beverly Hills, and also, celebrities like, what am I forgetting? Bradley Cooper. That's the name.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
anyway, so people can find me with the title of my company name and the title of my book. So you can just find me online at BeverlyHillsManners.com or my name, Lisa Gache. And I also have a podcast that I started, which, Gabriella, you're going to have to come on to my podcast, which I share
definitely.
with a college classmate. And we're going by pseudonyms, but meanwhile, we're giving it all away. The podcast is called Beverly and Brooklyn, because I'm representing the Beverly of Beverly Hills, and she's holding down the East Coast in Brooklyn for us. So we have a great take on, and we have a lot of etiquette topics that we cover, but in a very kind of fun way between two women who are doing a lot of yapping.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So,
It sounds wonderful. I can't wait to listen to it. Where do you have the podcast? Where can we listen to it?
Oh, great question. On Spotify.
Oh,
and it's on Patreon. And Beverly Hills Manners, if you can't, the book is available on Amazon, and it's also on Audible, if you like to listen to your books like I do. And so there's lots of great ways to find me.
Oh no, this is wonderful. I think all your tips are just insanely useful. I mean, I think we need we need a little bit of civility here, especially since you put on the news and there seems to be negativity coming from everywhere. We definitely need, yes, we need that uplifting light and smiles and that positivity to radiate to other people, because definitely times are tough right now for that, I think.
They are, and it can beat us down, and so we have to be strong and kind of fight through it and kind of say, okay, well, where's the, it's all an attitude. I mean, that's the bottom line. And so attitude and respect and consideration for one another, those are the pillars. Those are the pieces of thread that we should kind of make sure that we're, upholding every single day. And I think that's the message that I'm trying and hoping to spread on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think empathy has a lot to do with it as well.
Yes. It's absolutely, absolutely,
I think unfortunately we seem to be missing a lot of that. I don't know if people realize how much we need empathy for other
they
people.
talk about it. There's a lot of talk about it, and I also am a big believer in actions, right? So less talk, more action. And that's why I guess I don't use the word empathy as much, because I use the expression putting yourself in someone else's shoes, because to me it's more of an action that you can take where you realize how it feels if the tables were turned, which is basically empathy. You're feeling for that person. Because you know how it feels, right?
Right.
And so, but that's what empathy is. You have to imagine yourself in that person's position in order to feel what they're feeling.
Yes. Yeah. Especially with different age groups of people, like, when you have older parents and they just, are not really in the same wavelength. They don't understand a lot of the things that are going on. They don't understand social media or even media in general. So it's more difficult to communicate with people that don't quite see things the same way, younger or older, I think, in both camps.
Yeah, and I really think the operable word there is patience. We have to have patience. We have to have understanding, and that takes work. It's not easy.
Right. No, it does. It definitely takes work. Yeah. How long are your sessions? How long does it take for somebody to learn these skills?
Well, look, the more lessons we have, the more it becomes second nature.
I see.
A one and done is not going to do it, right?
Right.
So it's just like our body atrophies if we don't work on it. You have to continuously, and I have to say that I've been doing this for over 20 years, and truthfully, probably, and this is terrible to say, but it might have been the last 5 years that I really finally am embracing and embodying and utilizing to the fullest potential these tools. That it took a long time of me faking it to try them on and to really see how I could grab onto them for confidence or in particular situations. And now I hope I've evolved to the point where they are part of me. They're ingrained now.
Right.
In
And
my
I
fibers.
think you have to do things so many times to have it be second nature to you, so that
Exactly.
when you come across a situation, you know exactly how to react and you don't even think about it. This is what you do. But it takes a while to do that.
Yes, but I will say at the same time that despite my best efforts, I do still very much so put my foot in my mouth. And so sometimes when we try to do our best, we do the exact opposite thing. So this does not mean at all that I am perfect. I am still very much a work in progress, but I'm much better at what I'm, in my pursuit of utilizing this particular education.
So if you make an error, like you just said, do you apologize? How do you apologize? So that people
absolutely.
don't think that you're insincere, because that was a big thing. I remember when people were caught doing something that was inappropriate and then they apologized profusely, but then people thought, oh, that's not really sincere. I don't believe that they're actually sorry.
No, well, there's a way to apologize. So it depends on how you apologize. It depends on your tone of voice, your body language, and your words. So you apologize by taking responsibility. I apologize.
Right.
I can't believe that I was so thoughtless. I need to correct this, right? When you say, I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt, you're not accepting responsibility. You're basically starting with I'm, and then you're going to you, and you're blaming the other person, right? So you have to take 1,000% responsibility. You need to claim it right away, and you need to change it and change the course and learn from it. That's how we believe it's a true apology. So it can't be a non-apology apology. It has to be a genuine, heartfelt, from the depths of your soul apology. And then, there is a saying in the Jewish religion that once you've apologized to somebody 3 times, if they don't accept your apology, it's no longer on you, it's on them. So it does require the other person at some point to accept your apology, which I think is fair.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely fair, and there are people that can't and then don't move on, and that's when you kind of lose those relationships. But
exactly.
But yeah, but anyways, thank you so much for all of these tips. This was invaluable. I think we all need this. I think it's great to do this for young people, to send them to classes like this, because it does give them more confidence. I think they give some more polish and they know how to react in these situations. And I think it only benefits people in their career, in their lives, in their personal lives, to know how to handle themselves. So I think it's a great investment to actually send kids to do this, as well as adults and professional people that would need this for their business. So thank you so much for this. I appreciate it. And hopefully people will reach out to you and learn all your tips and tricks.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. Again, I am so grateful to you for remembering me after all this time and for allowing me to share some of my wisdom with your listeners and with your viewers. You are a beautiful representation of Besame Cosmetics, and I'm so happy for your success after all these years.
Oh, I know. You've been at it 20 years, so have I. So we're both
right.
The same,
We started around the same time.
the same time. I
Exactly.
think that's what we
We're
meant.
still going. Woohoo!
Perseverance.
Exactly. Exactly. Look, what is it? The turtle, whatever. We're taking a slow ride, but we're going to be there for a long time. So
Exactly. Yes.
that's the important
yes,
thing.
That's correct. That's great. That's great.
Okay.
Well,
Love
thank
it.
you so
Love
much.
it.
I'm going to end it right. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. We have more guests and interesting topics on the way that you don't want to miss. Goodbye for now. And remember to feel glamorous every day.